Hello guys, welcome back to Roxham TV and also welcome back to Jam Crypto. I hope you guys have a fantastic day wherever you are. As for Bitcoin is really correcting because yesterday we did a TA Wednesday. It's actually my first time ever I do an entire 1 hour show talking only about TA, looking only at numbers and a lot of data. So let me know how you guys found those type of content, if you like it or you prefer a little bit more news analysis, a little bit of on-chain. But today is going to be a more balanced show, just like how we do it on Roxham TV. So of course, we're going to dive into the TA. So we're going to look at the Bitcoin charts because right now we have been on I would say a tiny rally from a 98K. We had a massive dip 2 days ago. So people were basically was so much fun in the market again. So right now we're sitting at 103, trying to approach 104K. So let's see if this pump is actually a real one or another bear trap. And of course, we're gonna look at the on-chain because yesterday we didn't get to do any on-chain. I was just like straight up TA mentality, straight up numbers. So we're gonna do some on-chain. Let's see how if we are in a bear market, how low could we go, or is this really just a bad trap? And of course, there's some news analysis because we have some macro news. Basically, New York City, we have a new mayor, and the crypto community is really upset about it. We're gonna dive into that and really look into why we are so upset. Anyways, without further ado, let's bring out the chart. Let's look at where Bitcoin is heading to right now. So Bitcoin, as we know, the B word is on the table. So everyone is talking about bear market, and we are starting with the daily candle. So Bitcoin has been on a downtrend ever since we reached 126K all-time high. And even when we tried to break out, like that was back in 27th of October, and then we tried again on 28th of October. But what we have seen here is just like we keep getting rejected. Here we came close. That was back in 3rd or 2nd of November, and then we got rejected again. We didn't even get to touch the downward trend line. So that is not a nice thing. Like for me to be completely bullish again, to say that, okay, we are just in a bear trap, like I need to see Bitcoin get out of this downward momentum. Right now, we could, okay, if we have a rally, we could get rejected at 108K. If so, if that cap bounce is confirmed. So this is like at least like wake me up after we break out of this downward momentum. And if we pull up the RSI, I was talking about that yesterday. So RSI, one thing really bearish is that we actually dipped below 34. Again, 34 is a magical number on the daily RSI Bitcoin chart because whenever we dip below 34, usually we're gonna follow with a deeper correction. That's what we saw. That this is back in February 2025, so a few months ago in the beginning of the year. So we followed by a deeper correction. Let's see how much is this. So a 18% correction, 18.5% correction when we dip below the 34 magical number on the RSI. So this is one thing that I'm kind of concerned about because first, like when we dip below the 34 magical number, it usually means one thing. So either we're going to get more correction or there's just more chops around, so sideways movements. Either way, short term on the daily candles, it doesn't look like we are out of the wood, and it means like either gonna get more painful or it's gonna be very dull. So not much gonna happen. Maybe Bitcoin get rejected here again, and then we're gonna chop sideways. So stuff like that. That's what the RSI is suggesting. Let's also pull out the VLVP and let's see where the floor is actually at. Like for the VLVP, I really like to zoom out to the 1 year. So we're zooming out to November 2024, somewhere around that. And if we look at the like November data, like zooming out at the 1 hour, 1 year time frame, then we could see that 96K is at the major support level. So maybe we're going to see, okay, more painful because we dipped below 34 on the RSI. Either we're going to visit 96K as the support, or we're just going to do sideways action. So just consolidating and having a crap market. Not much gonna be like too exciting in the coming days. So that's what I see. And 96K is a level that I'm eyeing very closely. However, like, it's not like I would say all doom and gloom, because at the end of the day, like this few days is a most critical one, because we're gonna have the weekly candle close in like 3 days. We're gonna dive into the weekly, but okay, I could see signs of maybe we're still in a bull market, or we're heading to a bear market. We kind of like, I would say at the moment is more like a conflict, nothing for sure. But this coming days, we're gonna have some confirmation, and we're gonna have some rough idea where the market heading to, like whether the 4-year cycle is so intact. And the 6th of October was already the cycle top. But like if we zoom out, like it's not all so bad, because like, okay, at the end of the day, from 126K to 98K, somewhere around there, it's just a 21% correction. Like, okay, this may sound really crazy if you have a trend line mindset, if you're from the S&P 500 kind of world, but like in terms of Bitcoin, a 21% correction in a bull market, that's extremely normal. It's literally just another Thursday for us. So like if we zoom out, this is not very concerning, I would say, because like even with the ETF that we got the approval back in January 2024. So let's go back to January 2024. So here we go. Let us zoom closer. We had the top of like 48,000. Well, 48,000. That is like, seems like a long time ago. And we had a dip to $38,000. And look at this. This is already a 20%, even after we got the approval of the Bitcoin spot ETF. And so as here, like the point being, like a loco top is extremely normal. So here back in March 2024, and then we have a loco bottom in May 2024. So that's another 23%. And then we found the bottom kind of like chops around for a little bit longer. So as here, we have like a loco top. So loco top at 108K. That was back in December 2024. And then we have a dip. Here is like a 17% dip. Here's another loco top of 108K. And then here we dip all the way down to 74K. So 31%. Like point being, we see this like 21% correction in a bull market, in a bull run. This is not abnormal. Like this is not like very concerning. So even though I'm seeing a lot of pain, a lot of FUD on Twitter, and everyone is saying, okay, the 4-year cycle is so real, very much still relevant, very much still on the table, I still cannot wipe out all these moves, and also that is still reason for me to remain my bullishness. Okay, if we also hop onto the weekly, because weekly, as I keep talking about the 50-week moving average, that is the indicator, that is the one indicator that hasn't failed us. So that's why I'm relying on this frequently, like almost every single show. I'll just pull up the 50-week moving average. All right, so the 50-week is catching up because, like, of course, it's a moving average, so it's smoothing out. And 50-week right now is sitting like close to 103, close to 103. It's just below 103, technically speaking. And Bitcoin is literally hanging by a thread. We are just above, or basically sitting above, on the 50-week moving average line. So like one indicator that we could use is that, okay, this weekly candle, this week alone, is going to be a very critical week. I want to see whether Bitcoin would close below the 50-week or we close above the 50-week, because that changes the whole theory, that changes the whole tone of the market. Like if we get a couple closes below the 50-week, bull market is over. Like that is a definition of entering a prolonged bear market. If that were to happen, then another thing we have to ask ourselves is that, okay, how long is this bear market going to last? Usually from a cycle top to a cycle bottom, it takes like a year, so 365 days, more or less. So if we use this criteria, if we apply that 6th of October being the cycle top, then we're going to get a cycle bottom on 5th of October 2026. So this is just like some numbers to throw around. Of course, we still need to wait for confirmation, but as a good trader, as a professional trader, we definitely need to consider all scenarios. And I keep talking about the different groups of people. Like if you think that the macro tailwind is enough, like, okay, the Fed is printing money, QT is going to come to an end, yada, 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 then you might believe that, okay, we're just like, we don't even want to call this a bear market, maybe just like some sideways option. We're no longer going to see a bear market for the Bitcoin, for Bitcoin's asset anymore, because Bitcoin's getting so big. So whatever thesis you believe, like I'm still waiting for the confirmation, and it's just like today's Thursday already, so you might as well just wait for 3 more days, and then we have confirmation to see whether we are really just a bear trap or a real bear market about to start. And another reason that we are experiencing this is that, well, long-term holders are really getting the blame, I would say. So where's the, okay, long-term holder net position change. Like, okay, Bitcoin's latest drop isn't just about leverage of fear, it's about long-term holders unloading $45 billion worth of BTC while institutional buyers step back. Because, like, okay, this is the news that I saw. They were dumping 405,000 BTC over the past month. Maybe this is one of the reasons why we got a red October. So usually that's not the case, because usually October is like the best month out of Bitcoin entire history, like entire cycle, I would say. So this is really weird that we got a minus 3.69%. That's a very interesting number, but 3.69%, a negative number in October 2025. This is one of the most manipulated month, like manipulated October, so-called October or Downtober right now in Bitcoin's history, and the most manipulated month I've ever seen, I'll say. So literally broke the record, and very eye-opening. Let's just put it that way. All right, so another reason that we saw the Downtober narrative play out is that, okay, if we hop onto the Bitcoin spot ETF for how many consecutive days? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 consecutive days we are having an outflow on the spot Bitcoin ETF. So that's not nice. Like billions of dollars flowing out. Again, the reason why we are looking at spot Bitcoin ETF is because usually the buyers of these ETFs, they are institutional money, and so cool. They are smarter people. And if smarter people are stepping back, like, of course, Bitcoin's price is going to take a hit. So long-term holders are taking the blame right now. And for 400,000 BTC, that's a lot of BTC. So roughly 2% of the total supply. And when 2% of total supply being sold past month as profit-taking surge and ETF demand faded. So let's break it down like this story. Like let's unfold and what it means for the next phase of the cycle. So the heaviest selling actually occur in October, like late October. So actually mid to late October, right as Bitcoin fell from 120K to like 100K, somewhere around that. And the ETF flows dried up at the same time, where the US Bitcoin ETF seeing over, again, like more than $1 billion in outflows in the final week of October. That is causing so much panic. And by today, like actually yesterday, okay, by yesterday, 5th of November, long-term holders have dumped about 400,000 BTC in total. So this is I'll say a textbook case of supply and demand imbalance. Long-term holders with low cost bases are cashing out into strength, while short-term holders are left holding the bag. At the same time, big buyers like ETFs, funds, or corporate treasuries aren't buying enough to absorb that new supply because mining adds around 450 BTC per day. But in late October, institutional net buys fell below that. But what history shows is that this is just let me go back to the chart. Like this is just like a normal mid-cycle cool down. Like long-term holders selling. This shouldn't be a news. Like this is not something new. And a 20% correction is like a usual Thursday for us anyway. So if you ask me, is this like a normal or very concerning? Well, short term, it might be concerning because realized cap growth has slowed and demand is soft. Without institutional adoption, Bitcoin could test the 90K zone, and as the VLVP was suggesting, maybe 96K. That's on the daily candles. But in the bigger picture, if we zoom out and look at the grand scheme of things, this is completely normal. Every major bull run has a long-term holder distribution phase, like whether it's 2017 or 2021, like both saw whales taking profits before the next rally leg. This is just healthy rotation. Just like when you're in doubt, just zoom out. All right. So again, like long-term holders are taking the blame. So let us shift to on-chain right now. Perhaps it could offer some more perspective. Like we have to be prepared for the scenario to play out. Like if we are really if we have entered the bear market, because we only know this in hindsight. I'm giving you different scenarios so you could adjust your strategy, you could adjust your portfolio accordingly. So the first thing we're looking at, since the B word is on the table, is the Bitcoin market drawdown. So the bear market corrections from all-time high. So what you're looking at, like this chart, it shows how much Bitcoin's price dropped from its highest points in each past cycle. In early days, Bitcoin sometimes fell more than 90%, but that is like a really long time ago. So 2011, after reaching an all-time high. But as the market grew bigger and more stable, the drops became smaller. As you can notice, the numbers getting smaller. This means Bitcoin is becoming more mature. More people own it. There's more trading volume and fewer people are forced to sell during crashes. And if we compare today's situation to older bear markets, we can better understand where the next big correction might land. It also help us to see whether the cycle ends with a huge spike or a crash, which means a blow off top or a slower, softer decline. What it means right now, like if the last peak we saw was the top, then this cycle would be the calmest in Bitcoin's history. That also means the next bear market might not be as painful as before. If Bitcoin have a big blow off top, future drops could be around like 55% or 70%, because last time we got like 76%. So if we are being conservative, then maybe 70%. But if the top was more gradual, like what we saw, the drop might be closer to 30 to 55%. So, I mean, a 30%, that's not too bad, right? Okay, that would put the next bear market bottom somewhere between the high of like 50,000 and the high of 80,000, depending on how investors react. So in short, Bitcoin cycles are getting smoother. Each crash hurts less, showing the market is slowly growing up. And then second indicator that I want to show you guys is the short-term holder SOPR indicator. This tells us if short-term Bitcoin holders, like Bitcoin who, people who bought Bitcoin within the last few months, are selling at a profit or at a loss. When the value, just pay closer attention on the right aisle. So on the right side, when the value is above 1, it means more sellers are making money. On the other hand, if it's below 1, it means they're selling at a loss. So this metric is extremely useful because it shows the mood of short-term traders, the ones who often react the fastest, the quickest to market moves. When it's very high, traders get greedy, they get emotional. When it's very low, they also get emotional, but they feel fear, they feel exhaustion is taking over. So watching how this line moves help us spot when selling pressure or profit taking might be running out of steam. Right now, what is happening? So short-term holders are selling at a loss, which makes sense after a sharp drop. Just we saw like 98K. That is very, very scary. But here's the key point. The losses are not as deep as the last two local bottoms. Like we have circle here. The round circle, the bottoms is actually rising. That means this move still looks like a normal bull market dip, not the start of a full bear trend. Okay, short-term panic is here, of course, but it's not that extreme, I would say. This kind of selling often appears during healthy correction in a bigger uptrend. All right, so at least this is what the short-term holder SOPR is suggesting. Let's also hop onto the fear and greed. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with this chart. So it measures how people feel about the Bitcoin market. It looks at things like price swings, like trading volume, like social media posts, Bitcoin dominance, yada, yada, yada. And it gives the score from 0 to 100. So here, like between 0 to 25, of course, it means extreme fear. Vice versa, 75 and 100, it means extreme greed. Like when the fear is high, it often means the market is near a bottom because most people have already sold. When greed is high, it's often shown as a top because everyone is rushing to buy. It's a simple but very powerful tool to understand crowd psychology and avoid emotional trading. What's happening right now? We're at that 23. It shows like we are at extreme fear after Bitcoin briefly dipped below 100K. This level of fear is similar to what we saw at the last two local bottoms. This cycle, a possible sign that we are close to a short-term bottom yet again. Of course, bottoms take time to form, like prices can dip lower before recovering, but history shows that the market often peak in greed and bottom in fear. So the key message here, I would say, it's very important to separate short-term noise from the long-term story. Yesterday's dip doesn't change the bigger multi-year bull trend since no key support level has been broken yet. But as I mentioned, I'm sticking to the TA, so I'm eyeing this week very closely. Let's see if the weekly candle going to close above or below the 50-week moving average. All right, so that's a lot of data. Before we move on to the Fed, because there is some some news about the Fed adding liquidity. So someone say is printing money. Like before we're going to dive into that, we're going to take a little break because that's a lot of data. So after our little break, we're going to see you guys in 3 minutes.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
Alright guys, welcome back to Roxham TV. As I promised you guys before we went on that little break, we're going to look at what Jerome Powell or the Fed is doing because people are saying that we have officially entered QE. Is that actually true? Like, why there is rumor like this? So we're going to take a look at what happened. So what just happened in the US financial system is that the Fed has been quietly printing $50 billion in just like a day or two. This all started when the repo market. So, if for those of you who don't know much about the traditional financial market, like the repo market is the short-term funding engine behind global finance. So they got squeezed at the end of October 2025. So we see this massive chart. So that's when the Fed decided to step in and printed $50 billion. So banks suddenly couldn't find enough cash to fund themselves overnight, and rates spiked above the Fed's target. The Fed had to step in very fast and injecting emergency liquidity, injecting emergency money to stop the system from seizuring up, basically. But is this actually QE or just a emergency money. So it's just like a maintenance. And more importantly, how does this connect to Bitcoin sudden rebound? All right, so how did this happen? Okay, maybe I should give you guys a little bit of context, because I know a lot of like Bitcoin and crypto investors are watching this channel. So at the end of October, like three things collided. First, we have the month-end balance sheet stress. Like banks usually, they tend to hoard cash to tidy up their books. This is one thing. And then the second thing we have to pay attention is QT. The Fed actually, they still shrinking the balance sheet. So we can still see that, okay, we are at $6.59 trillion. So QT hasn't officially ended yet. They're still shrinking the money, pulling reserves out of the system. So that's the second thing that being collided here. And then the third thing is that let's not forget the entire government is still on a shutdown right now. So the US stopped spending for weeks while tax inflows kept rolling in. That last one caused the let's go back to the where is it? Let's go back to the chart here. So the last one caused the Treasury General Account, so TGA in short, at the Fed to balloon by more than $200 billion. So think of it like the government sucking cash out of circulation. By 31st October, the system was running dry. The repo rates such as the SOFR shot up to 4.22%, which is above the Fed's target of 4%. And what the Fed did is, of course, they tried to get in and then to calm things down. The Fed opened its standing repo facility, basically a lending window where banks can swap treasuries for overnight cash at 4% rate. So the morning auction is $29.4 billion, and then the afternoon auction is another $21 billion. So make up a total of $50 billion. This is a record high since the SLF launch in 2021. Over the next few days, like usage temper, $22 billion on 1st of November, and then another $4.8 billion on 4th of November. And then since today, 6th of November, the market kind of back to normal. The Fed then confirmed QT will end on 1st of December to prevent a repeat. But after this happened, looks like the QT might come to an end even before that. So I know that's a lot of jargons, especially for those crypto folks, for those for those who basically dive into Bitcoin without looking at the traditional financial market. So let me break it down in a more crypto-friendly way. So imagine this is like a DeFi lending pool suddenly short on liquidity. So the repo market, you could think of it like the overnight collateralized loan, like borrowing USDC against ETH on Aave. And then QT is stands for like a token burn that reduces liquidity. How about that? And then repo, the SLF repo, that's the Fed's backstop pool injecting temporary liquidity. And SOFR is the borrow rate. So when it spikes, it means more stress. So the Fed basically lent out stablecoins overnight to stop the peg from breaking, then pull them back the next day. This is what happened, and I think I couldn't break it down in a more simpler term for crypto folks. So this is actually not QE, but very close. Like QE, let's go back to the balance sheet of the Fed. So QE would mean this balance sheet would actually go up instead of like, okay, ending QT means like go sideways. QT means go down. That's what it means. All right, so QE will be like permanently buy assets and expands the balance sheet for months or years to come, whereas this like repo operations are overnight repos. So cash goes out one day and comes back the next day. It's like a flash loan in DeFi. But here's the twist. Like when these injections became frequent, they review the reserves are getting scarce. That's why the Fed is now winding down QT sooner than expected. Why this matters? So for the economy, the system worked like no crisis, but a warning shot that liquidity is really thin. And as for the market, like the short-term funding calls are easing, but broader credit conditions remain very tight. For Bitcoin, as we know, whenever the Fed steps in with liquidity, Bitcoin gonna like that very much. So there's like kind of gives Bitcoin a breathing room. If QT comes to an end in December, because like we have confirmation it's gonna come to an end on 1st of December, but right now we're speculating whether we're gonna see that maybe slightly earlier. So for those of those of you who are group 3 people like Bam Crypto, so that might be a hidden tailwind for Bitcoin's price action. All right, so the key takeaway, I guess, is like the repo stress came from QT and shutdown and month-end balance sheet. So that's why we have a cash crunch. And as QT coming to an end, it signals a major pivot. So maybe Bitcoin and risk-on assets going to benefit from liquidity rebound. All right, so this is what happened in the traditional market. Let's also hop on to, well, this latest news. Well, it's not really latest. It happened yesterday. So New York City made history, and the crypto world is really, really not happy about it. Because yesterday, this 34-year-old Mamdani, he shocked the entire market. So he shocked the political world by winning the mayor race. He is now set to become NYC, so New York's first Muslim, South Asian, and openly socialist mayor. His victory speech promised to solve old problems with new solutions, but the question everyone in crypto is asking, like, are those new solutions going to include regulating or taxing us out of the city? So how did this happen? Like it's very dramatic, like the whole thing. I was just like watching it as if like it's definitely more fun than watching Netflix. All right, so this election wasn't supposed to be open. Mayor Eric Adams dropped out in September after being hit with some corruption and bribery charges, leaving the Democratic ticket wide open. Then came Mamdani, a relatively unknown New York State Assemblyman from Queens who beat political heavyweights like Andrew Cuomo in the June primary through pure grassroots momentum. And his message hit home in a post-pandemic NYC struggling with rent, inflation, and inequality. He ran on progressive ideas like we need free childcare, we need affordable housing and climate-friendly jobs. And he really connected with voters online. Sometimes he was even rapping on TikTok. In the general election, he faced Cuomo, who ran as an independent after losing the primary. And then we also have Curtis Sliwa, which is a right-wing radio host. Turned out like he smashed records, like over 2 million voters, the highest since 1969, and we know the results. So Mamdani won that with about like 50 to 62% of the vote. He's gonna take office on 1st of January 2026, officially replacing Adams. So my question is like, who the hell is this guy, right? So this guy was actually born in Uganda, which is a country in East Africa. He's really young, so 1991. He was born to a Indian origin parents. He moved to the US, so he moved to Queens at the age of 7. His father is a well-known academic, and he grew up being inspired by anti-colonial leaders. So before politics, he worked in foreclosure prevention in community organizing. So very much a grassroots story. Like, ideally speaking, he's a democratic socialist. So he supports labor unions and rent controls. He wants higher taxes on the on the wealthy. He pushes for government-led social programs, and he strongly, when I mean strongly, he's like strongly pro-Palestine and supports the BDS movement, which has drawn backlash from pro-Israel groups, of course. So yes, his win is both symbolic and is very polarizing. But why the crypto community is so upset? Like, crypto went wild when the news broke. Okay, here's why. Because like this guy Mamdani, he has publicly criticized crypto after the FTX collapse, so calling it a scam that had working class New Yorkers. He's hinted at tougher consumer protection laws and even environmental crackdowns on mining operations. And then there comes also the taxation risk. His platform calls for higher taxes on the wealthy to fund social programs, which could hit crypto funds, exchanges, and crypto whales based in the NYC, so based in New York. And then there's also the crypto community. Like crypto community, we skews more like I would say we are more right leaning, and then we are more libertarian. So we value free markets and minimal government. Whereas this guy, Mamdani, he's basically the opposite. He believes in regulation, he believes in redistribution. So that's why if we hop onto X, like we are seeing all these like posts, okay, we just like type NYC and then people are saying, okay, Charlie Kirk actually warned us, and then NYC will fail, like will fall, and then NYC has become a meme. Rest in peace. Like we keep seeing posts like this, and especially on Twitter, like going viral. And here comes a video that I found is quite interesting. So this guy, he's from Hungary, so he claimed that he has experienced socialism, so he is completely against that. So maybe we play a little bit for like a minute of this video, but I find it really interesting.
Are you the one that was in the car right there?
Yes.
You pulled
I'm
over to
watching
say
you
hi.
for the past 3 days. So many times. It's amazing. I'm from communism.
Okay.
Okay? This is crazy. Like seriously. I don't know what they want to resist. I have no clue.
I can't get in.
Yeah, sure. Of course. I've been to communism, all of that stuff, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Where are you from?
Hungary.
Oh wow.
So back in the days it was it was actually communist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it sucked. So anybody, I don't understand those people in this country who actually are saying,
What do you think about Mamdani about to win and be the mayor of New York, a proud
God
communist?
bless New York.
Yeah, that's why we're here in
Seriously,
Florida,
listen,
right?
I live behind the Iron Curtain.
Mm-hmm.
Making things like that to want socialism and want communism is one of the dumbest thing anybody can say in this country. And I would literally make it as a college requirement that you have to go for 3 months as a volunteer to a third world country to actually notice how good you have.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Because that's the only
you guys can finish the rest of the video, but I just found his response really interesting. So Donald Trump, of course, he said a few words like after this news broke. So Donald Trump said like New Yorkers will flee city under communist Mayor Mamdani. So my next question when I saw this news is that his position is mayor. So how significant is this role? Like what a mayor actually does. So let's actually decode that, especially for those viewers who is not from the US, you might not be so familiar with the whole systems, how it works. So the US government has 3 layers. The first is a federal. So federal, it means president, it means Congress. And then the second layer is the state. So governor, etc. And then the third layer is local. So it's mayor and city council. Mayor is the executive head of a city. So in NYC, that means managing a $100 billion budget, larger than most countries, and overseeing everything from the NYPD to public schools to housing and transit. So what the mayor can do, they can propose city taxes and spending. They can appoint agency heads and judges. They can issue executive orders, for example, like incentives for green tech or rules on mining energy use. But what he can't do is that he can't override state or federal crypto laws. New York's, like, for example, okay, New York's bit license regime is set by the state, and the SEC and CFTC regulate crypto nationally. So his direct power over crypto is very limited. But what this means is very symbolic. Like, his stance does matter. NYC is the global finance hub, and sentiment here influences policy decisions across the US. And people are, I would say, taking it very, very seriously, maybe a little bit too serious and reading to the news a little bit too much. And I could see why, because like the 2025 elections were off-year local races. Democrats performed strongly across several states, winning in New Jersey, winning in Virginia, so signaling a backlash to Donald Trump's federal policies. Crypto communities are watching NYC explicitly, like the closest, because it's the financial capital of the entire world. It's the home to Wall Street, to hedge funds, to major crypto exchanges. So if Mamdani makes the environment tougher, for example, higher taxes or green energy mandates, more bureaucracy, for example, firms could shift to Miami or Austin, both more pro-crypto jurisdictions. So that's why this one city alone sparks so much reaction on Twitter and even in in global markets. But I would say when you ask me, when it comes to Bitcoin impact, like as I mentioned, in short term, like when this news broke, crypto community did not like that at all. But if we zoom out, if we look at the medium term, okay, there might be some slight chill for NYC-based startup and some funds, and possibly some local mining restrictions, some regulations, or higher business taxes. But like in the long run, I would say there's like a minimal impact, like a minimal direct impact globally, because Bitcoin doesn't care who the mayor is. Okay, symbolically, it reflects rising progressive influence and potential democratic resistance to Donald Trump's deregulatory agenda. So, crypto's market takeaway, I would say, is neutral to maybe a little bearish for the whole NYC operations, but globally, Bitcoin doesn't care, and that's the beauty of Bitcoin. All right, so that is the news that I wanted to cover. And one thing that's very interesting is that poly market traders earn millions because they're betting that this guy will win. Yet again, poly market is one platform that I really like because so far the predictions from that platform has been very accurate. And like poly market is so open, and you could see the whales, like what the whales, maybe they have like some insider information. Like in this case, this might not be insider information, so I'm not referring to this case, but like most often than not, for example, like CC getting pardoned all of a sudden, and there's like a wallet betting that CC will get pardoned and earn millions of dollars. So that's why I call insider trading. So I like poly market because you could know in advance what those whales know that you don't. And if they place like $100,000 or even possibly like basically close to $1 million, mostly 100,000. So hundreds of thousands, then you know they know something. So that's why I love poly market so much. And if you guys are farming airdrop, I know they are doing airdrop as well. So do pay close attention. But anyways, that's pretty much all I want to cover in today's content. Well, last call to action, make sure to follow us on Twitter. My handle is gemdremcrypto_io. Make sure to follow Roxham TV as well, because we have a lot of valuable content coming to you every single day. We are not only sharing Bitcoin, but global news about the market, about macro, about geopolitics. So make sure to follow us because you don't want to miss out any valuable content. So that's it for today's coming to you from Roxham TV Hong Kong studio, of course. I'm live from Monday to Friday at 4 a.m. Eastern Time, breaking all the biggest stories in Bitcoin and in the world. So if you enjoy the show, make sure to hit the subscribe and catch the next one live wherever or whenever you're tuning in. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's show.